Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. My name is Russ and I drive a 2024 Subaru Forester Sport. I've been driving my Forester around New York City for the last 2 years. Now, if you watch this channel before, you already know I'm pretty honest about my experience with this car. I've talked about the things I love, I've talked about the things that annoy me. And after 2 years of ownership, I think I'm finally ready to answer one simple question. Would I buy a Subaru Forester again? Because the answer isn't as obvious as you might think. There are things about this car that still drive me crazy, and there are also things it does so well that I've had a hard time finding another car I'd rather own. So today I'm gonna walk you through exactly where my opinion stands after 2 years. I'll tell you all the good, I'll tell you all the bad. And at the end of the video, I'll tell you whether I would buy this Forester all over again. Let's start with the thing that still annoys me the most. If you watched this channel before, you probably already know what's coming, the CVT. And yes, after 2 years of ownership, it still gets on my nerves. In my opinion, the worst part about my Super Forester is the fact that it comes with a CVT. So why am I not a fan? Well, there are a couple of reasons. The first has to do with the driving experience. The weirdest thing happens when you're slowing down in this car. Let's say you're cruising around 25 miles an hour and take your foot off the gas. Everything feels normal and natural, just regular free coasting, feels great. Then around 20 miles an hour, the car starts slowing itself down more aggressively. The smooth coasting feeling disappears. It almost feels like the car suddenly decides to help you brake even though you're not touching the brake pedal. Then around 15 miles an hour, you feel this sensation like the car is lurching forward, almost like somebody lightly bumped into your rear bumper. And it's not like the CVT is broken or anything. The reason for these sensations is the torque converter releasing. That's why you get this feeling of engine braking, and then as the torque converter releases, you feel the car lurch forward. Bottom line, it just feels weird. Luckily, this does not happen every time you drive, but it happens enough to annoy me. And after 2 years, I still notice it. I still hate it, and I still wish my Forester had an automatic that did not do this. The other thing I notice occasionally is during heavy stop and go traffic, when you're trying to accelerate super gently, the car can feel jumpy as it hunts through simulated gears. Again, not a huge deal, especially for someone who doesn't care about driving too much, but I noticed this, and it's one of those things that just ruins the driving experience for me, and I wish I did not have to deal with this. But here's the thing. As much as I complain about the CVT, especially in the city, I have almost no complaints on the highway. Once you're above 35, 40 miles an hour, it honestly feels pretty normal. Road trips on this thing are excellent. Highway cruising is smooth. So despite my harsh words, I realized after 2 years of driving this car, the CVT isn't a deal breaker for me. It's just something I wish Subaru tuned a little better or got rid of altogether. And let's be real, if I'm completely honest, my biggest concern about the CVT isn't even about how it feels when you're driving. It's the question of longevity and reliability. Like a lot of Subaru owners, I sometimes wonder how this transmission is going to hold up long term. Will it make it to 150,000 miles, 200,000 miles? Only time will tell. I do plan on servicing the CVT and changing the fluid, and I'd probably also seriously consider buying an extended warranty, particularly because of the CVT and how pricey it is to replace one. Alright, now let's talk about the engine. And the engine on Subaru Forester doesn't get much praise simply because many people consider it to be pretty underpowered. Well, if you're coming from a fast or turbocharged vehicle, this Forester is going to feel slow. There's really no way around it. 182 horsepower, nobody's confusing this thing with a sports car, and when you're merging into a short New York City on-ramp, you will definitely find yourself using most of the throttle. Actually, who am I kidding? Your foot is gonna be buried into the floor. The same thing happens when you're passing slower traffic on a highway. The Forester gets the job done, it just never feels effortless. But having said that, I actually like this engine. The throttle response is surprisingly good, very direct and punchy. This engine is very smooth, it has minimal vibrations, and from everything I heard and read about it so far, is pretty reliable. I like the fact that it's a horizontally opposed boxer engine, which automatically means that it sits flat all the way down the chassis level, which improves the handling. And for everyday driving, honestly, this engine is enough. Would I love a turbo option? Absolutely. Is it absolutely necessary? No, not really. No. But if it was available, of course I'd like to have it under the hood. Alright, so the next thing that surprised me is fuel economy, because depending on where you drive, your experience might be completely different from mine. Let's start with the bad news. My city fuel economy here in Brooklyn is honestly terrible. 15, 16 mpg, that's all I get. And when you compare that to the EPA numbers on a window sticker, it can be disappointing, but then something strange happens. Take the same vehicle on the highway and suddenly it's completely different story for me. I've seen 35 mpg on a really long highway trips without even trying. That's actually better than the window sticker. I drove 45 miles the other day from Brooklyn to Long Island. It was morning rush hour traffic on Bell Parkway, summer heat, AC blasting, two people in the car. Then I checked the MPG, bam, 39 MPG. I'm like, what? Is this a hybrid? What's happening? So yeah, fair to say that highway MPG is great. However, if you spend most of your life in heavy city traffic like I do, don't expect miracles. But if you're someone who spends a lot of time on highways, this car can be surprisingly efficient. Another thing worth mentioning that most car reviews miss is the car insurance. And this was something I honestly wasn't expecting, but here in Brooklyn, I pay $220 a month for full coverage on my Subaru Forester. What's interesting is that my Forester cost me roughly $120 to $150 less a month to insure than some of the competitors I was considering before I got my Forester. That includes vehicles like Toyota RAV4, Mazda CX-5, and Nissan Rogue. Now, obviously, your insurance rates will be different, but for me, that wasn't a small difference. That was real money I'm saving every single month. So yeah, when I was car shopping, it definitely played a role in my final decision. Alright, let's talk interior, and one of the biggest reasons I bought this car was the interior. And after 2 years, I still think it's one of the Forester's biggest strengths. The visibility is incredible, the seating position is excellent, the cabin feels open and airy, and as a tall driver, I never feel cramped. Honestly, that's one of the biggest reasons I bought this car in the first place. Before buying a Forester, I spent a lot of time looking at the Toyota RAV4. In fact, that was probably my favorite option, on paper at least. I like the traditional automatic transmission that it had. I like Toyota's reputation when it comes to reliability. I was 90% set on buying a Toyota RAV4, and then I sat on one. I'm 6'4", and almost immediately I noticed the center console pushing into my right knee. The cabin just felt tight, there was not enough headroom, and the same thing happened when I looked at the Mazda CX-5 and the Nissan Rogue. And honestly, the Forester was just completely different. The visibility was better, the cabin felt bigger, it was just like a breath of fresh air. And for the first time during my shopping process, I felt like I wasn't making compromises just because I'm tall. Even today, after 2 years, I still think it's one of the best things about this car. So if you're a tall driver and you're car shopping, you really owe it to yourself to sit inside a Subaru Forester before you make that final decision. The seats in my Subaru Forester are pretty comfortable and they held up pretty well over the last 2 years. I've seen reports from some owners who experience wear on the side bolsters, but after 2 years, mine are still looking great. They're comfortable, my back never hurts from being in the car for too long, and they have these orange accents, at least here in the sport trim, that make the interior feel a little bit more special, and I still genuinely enjoy sitting in this cabin. The rear seats are comfortable too, they do recline, and my passengers never complain. Oh, and let's not forget about the panoramic moonroof that Subaru kindly puts on every Forester from premium up. Basically, that thing makes a huge difference, makes the cabin feel even bigger than it already is, and my passengers absolutely love it, especially in the summer. But there are a few things I don't love. For example, cargo area isn't actually class leading when compared to RAV4 or Nissan Rogue or Mazda CX-5. Yes, the cabin feels huge, the passenger space is huge, but when you compare cargo numbers with something like a Toyota RAV4, for example, my closest choice after this, the Toyota actually wins. Another thing that annoys me is winter heating. For whatever reason, I never feel like enough hot air reaches the footwell area. And that's actually a common complaint on the forums. The cabin gets warm. Yes, takes about 4 minutes for it to get nice and toasty. But my feet are cold constantly. Not just my feet, my wife sitting next to me, her feet are also freezing. And then there are some questionable interior design decisions, like the SOS button. Whoever decided to put it right next to the dome light button clearly never drove this car at night. I've accidentally hit it multiple times trying to turn on the dome light at night. Makes me scratch my head and go, what were you thinking, guys? Alright, let's talk about the big one, the all-wheel drive system. This is probably the biggest reason I would buy another Forester. Confidence that it gives you, yeah, it's pretty incredible. This vehicle has been absolutely solid in bad weather. I've driven it for 2 winters now, and one of them included some pretty serious snow. The Forester never got stuck, not once. And that's on factory tires, by the way. And yes, I've used X mode, which is not a gimmick, by the way, not at all. And yeah, it allowed me to drive through some seriously deep snow. And yeah, I've intentionally tested it in conditions that most crossover owners would avoid. And every single time, it just kept going. And the best way I can describe it is simple. The Forester feels like a little tank. It just feels so ready and eager. And in that deep snow mode, wow, I wish I could describe the torque you feel as it pushes you out of the snow. It's actually pretty incredible. I don't want to sound corny, but I never find myself wondering if the car can handle the bad weather conditions because I already feel like it can. Alright, now let's talk about the EyeSight. The EyeSight system has been excellent. I've seen it warn me of potential issues like stationary cars, huge traffic cones, pedestrians, and while I personally don't use adaptive cruise control or lane centering very often, I know plenty of people who absolutely love those features on Super Foresters, but for me, New York driving is just too unpredictable to use those systems all the time. But at the end of the day, it's nice knowing that the technology is there just in case I need it. Alright, so one criticism I've heard countless times is that the Forester is boring, and honestly, people aren't completely wrong. This isn't a sports car, it's not a luxury SUV. Nobody's running outside to take pictures of it in a parking lot. And that's okay, because after 2 years, I've started to realize that boring isn't necessarily a bad thing. Boring means predictable, boring means comfortable, boring means I get in the car every morning and I don't have to think about it. It will start and will get me where I need to go. Also, when you get a Subaru, you automatically become a part of the Subaru community. And whether it's forums, Reddit, people watching this channel, Subaru owners tend to be passionate about their cars, really passionate. And I'm definitely not one of those people who think Subaru can do no wrong. Trust me, I've complained about this car plenty of times, but I do enjoy being a part of a community that actually cares about the brand and the cars they drive. I'm not sure I'd get that same strong feeling of community if I bought a RAV4 and Mazda CX-5, for example. Subaru has truly built something unique here. And of course, there will be those who make fun of you for driving a Subaru. And after 2 years, I have to admit that I really like being a Subaru driver because I know what it means to me and I could care less what it might say about me. But fair warning, if you do want to blend in and not receive daily Subaru driver memes from your friends, just get something boring and forgettable like a Nissan Rogue or Mazda CX-5. Nobody will care. So, would I buy this car again? After everything I just said, you might be expecting me to say no. Yes, the CVT does annoy me. The city fuel economy isn't great. The cargo area could be bigger. I wish Subaru still offered a turbo. And I still think Subaru made some questionable interior design decisions. But here's the thing. After 2 years, I still genuinely like this car. It's really comfortable. Suspension on this thing is just wow. It's practical for a family of three. With all of our stuff, it feels just perfect. The visibility is outstanding. The car is safe. A huge point, especially if you drive your whole family. The all-wheel drive system is excellent, and I've tested it myself. And most importantly, every time I get behind the wheel of this car, I know exactly what I'm getting. A dependable vehicle that does almost everything well. So if I could go back 2 years and do it all over again, would I buy my 2024 Subaru Forester? Yeah, the answer is yes. The funny thing is that my biggest regret isn't buying the Forester. My biggest regret is not getting the optional package 24. The bigger screen, the power lift gate, better music, reverse automatic braking. Those are options I wish my car had, and I just chipped out, and I wish I didn't. But the car itself, I still think I made the right choice here, even though I won't ever stop complaining about the CVT. And now I want to hear from you guys. If you own a Forester, would you buy it again? Or do you feel like you made a mistake? And if you're shopping for one right now, what's the biggest thing that's holding you back at the moment? Let me know down in the comments. If you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care.